think for me, it was so important ultimately to write this book because I realized very early on in my parenting of my sons that I was starting to repeat some of the same cycles and behaviors that I had grown up with. And I knew I hated growing up like that. It did not feel good. It did not make me feel like I was loved, valued, cared for, any of those things. And I didn't want my children to feel that way, but I didn't know how to change it. And so for me, I think I prayed, I asked for God to show me a different way. And honestly, even through writing this book, he was still refining me and showing me a different way. Because
Sure.
I'm writing, I mean, I've read the five love languages. I've read the five love languages of children prior to this, but it's not until you're in there doing the work that it starts to really connect, at least for me. And so I really had to be intentional and say, okay, this is my son's love language. This is what I've identified by his behaviors and how he interacts with me. And it's not the same as mine. And so it's hard. It's not natural or easy for me to just give them love in that way because it's not the way that I receive love. And most of us give love in the way we want to receive it,
Right.
right? And so it takes acknowledging, like, hey, I want to change this thing. And then two, being intentional. Okay, now I have to put in the work to give my child love in the way that they need to receive it so that they do feel love and they have that confidence and that security that their mother loves them no matter what. That doesn't mean that they don't still get disciplined. That doesn't mean that there aren't still boundaries and rules. It's a balance, like everything is. But if I want to end the cycle or at least start to shift it in a different positive direction, then I have to be able to acknowledge it first and then be intentional about doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of my first jobs, um, I was my manager at the time was like complaining about this mess, like this organization. And he just said like nobody, like it's been this way for years and they won't fix it. And my naive self, I said, well, why don't they fix it? And he said, because people, if they have to take time to fix it, they feel like it'll take too much time to like reorganize. Like it's better to just figure these workarounds, right? And that's what we do in our lives, in our relationships. We figure out these workarounds and we say ridiculous stuff like, well, that's just the way I am.
Yeah.
And we make excuses for other people. Oh, that's just the way they are, like, you know, and we don't hold ourselves accountable and we don't give ourselves we don't have that courage to start to change, you know, how we're parenting or how we're communicating in these relationships because it feels like a lot of work.
It is work. That's the
Yeah,
thing. I think the reason people do that is because that's what they've seen their whole lives as an example as well, right? You don't
for
speak
sure.
unless you're spoken to. You don't question what an adult does. You don't bring yourself to, skill of one of your elders or talk back or disrespect, right? And there's a lot of thoughts and feelings I have on that we'll say for another podcast. But I say all that to say, like, I've heard you and I, again, we're both a fan of Darius Daniels, my friend Jerry Flowers in Houston. Both of them have said that a lot of times when you're in a situation where you feel frustrated by it, and you don't see a solution being executed or change happening, most likely God put you there to be the person to change that situation, right?
Mm,
And so I think about that as I apply it to this book and what I experienced in childhood, what I know my parents experienced in childhood, and what was happening as a parent for my children.